welcome to the February edition of VolunteerMatch's Best Practice Networks webinar series. I'm Casey Brennan from VolunteerMatch, and we'll be moderating our session today. Today's session is entitled Green the Team, 5 Practices for Engaging Employees in Sustainability. Employee engagement is an important concept for all of us to understand, as it can help us save costs, improve morale, inspire creativity, drive innovation, and attract and retain talent. So we're really excited to welcome Raphael to the call today. Raphael is the Chief Strategic Officer of BBMG, a brand innovation firm dedicated to the intersection of branding, sustainability, and social purpose. There's no better expert than Raphael to teach us about how engaging our employees and creating engagement points in our CSR programs in a way that will make our programs more effective and impactful. In addition, BBMG recently helped create Walmart's global engagement platform and has published an employee engagement starter guide, both of which Raphael will outline for us later in the session today. So before we get started, and Raphael is in charge of the slides right now, so Raphael, if you could go to the next slide for me.
Sure.
And before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone about how they can submit questions today. You have 2 ways to submit questions. You can submit them via the question box on the right-hand side of your screen, or you can also submit questions to us on Twitter by including the hashtag VMBPN to us at VM_solutions. We're going to try to leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the session today, and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can. And then also I wanted to remind everyone on the line that we'll be distributing a copy of the slides and a link to the recording of this session after the event. So without further delay, I'm going to pass the presentation over to Raphael so he can get us started. Welcome, Raphael.
Thank you, Casey, and good afternoon and good morning. Happy leap year. And it's a real pleasure to be here today, and thanks to Casey and VolunteerMatch for the opportunity to share what we at BBMG have been doing and learning and would love to share in terms of greening the team. What I guess in the biggest context for our hour together, I'd like to share how greening the team can be a real driver of innovation and value. And I think what we've learned and what we all know is that tomorrow's brands and forward-thinking leaders are increasingly looking at employee engagement as a competitive advantage and as a driver of business and social value. And as Casey mentioned up top, increasingly we know that the business case for employee engagement is strong, whether it's cost savings or better retention, improved morale, a nimble culture of innovation. Yet, why don't we see more companies investing more significantly in such programs? Well, we know culture change is hard. The issues around sustainability and social change are complex. And certainly our current economic climate is a tough one, to put it mildly. But as we hope to show in our presentation today, the opportunity to create an eco-minded and engaged workforce is more possible and doable than ever. And many companies, as we'll share, are openly offering tools and best practices that we can build from. And increasingly, all employees, and specifically younger employees, are enthusiastically embracing the culture shifts towards sustainability and purpose. So building on BBMG's work recently with Walmart in creating its global employee engagement platform called My Sustainability Plan, we'd like to share and offer a belief statement that employee engagement is one of the most effective tools for achieving long-term success and shared value. And today we're going to share some practical tips for getting started, some strategies that can be most effective in helping you hurdle your challenges that you may be facing that are common to all of us, in seizing opportunities that can help us succeed in the future. And so just as a quick overview of what we'll share, I'll frame the conversation in terms of some of the things we're seeing culturally in the marketplace as it relates to business climate and context that frames the moment of opportunity and why employee engagement matters. Then I'm going to just walk through 7 lessons from BBMG's work with Walmart and My Sustainability Plan as we've helped to create that platform and take it global. And then finally, I'll end, and the bulk of the presentation is really unpacking 5 best practices for engaging employees with some tips for success and some examples of what we're seeing of companies who are doing a great job, at least getting started. And then we want to make sure we have a good, robust conversation at the end to answer your questions and also to share some links to some free resources that we have available together. Again, hello, I'm Raphael, and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at BBMG. And as you can see here on the left, we're located in Dumbo, Brooklyn. That's a shot from right in front of our office. That's my 5-year-old daughter, Paloma, when we had the opportunity to actually pick tomatoes upstate one weekend, which was wonderful, and our dog, Ella. And the reason you see a longhorn is that my background is in politics. I was a speechwriter for the governor of Texas, Ann Richards, and before founding BBMG, worked to campaign ideas and issues and to create movements around social change. And I have the privilege today of helping to lead BBMG, and we're a brand innovation agency that's really dedicated on the new consumer, the value and values-driven consumer who's really looking for companies to align with the deeper purpose and ideals to create values and value that's good for everybody. And we've been around for 9 years. We're 100% dedicated to this intersection of branding, sustainability, and social purpose, as Casey mentioned up top. And we're really proud to be the first agency that has a private community of value and values-driven consumers that we use called The Collective that helps us co-create campaigns with all of our ideas, not just some of our ideas. And we're very proud as well to walk our talk. We're a certified green business and one of the founding B corporations. So that's a little bit about us. And I hope, the participants on the call may represent multiple types of organizations in different sectors. And we found that embedding sustainability into your brand strategy and your business and then unleashing the co-creativity of all of our stakeholders to create campaigns and products and platforms that can make a difference in the marketplace but also make a difference in society is happening across all segments and sizes of our market. So we've been privileged to create CSR strategy for Samsung, to create my sustainability plan as it goes global for Walmart, which I'll share in more depth, but also work with mission-driven brands like Cliff Bar and Lotus Foods and nonprofits, whether it be Ocean Conservancy or the Case Foundation or some of the certifications that we see on products. So some of the tools and experiences that I'll share today, I hope you'll see are relevant regardless of whether you're a mission brand that's scaling a global company that's managing, a multi-100,000 person workforce, or a nonprofit that believes that what we do in the nonprofit sector is as important as any in walking our talk and driving change from the inside out. So I'd like to just frame from the context of the moment sort of what we're seeing. And it's no secret that today's brands face economic uncertainty and consumer skepticism at every turn. There are still spreading citizen uprisings around the world and in the Middle East. New Pew research is showing that the gap between generations is wider than ever. And whether you're an employee, a consumer, or a community member, I think we're all hungry for a new way of doing business that respects our intelligence as well as the world around us. And, whether it's the World Economic Forum at Davos or Rio +20, world leaders have identified trust and sustainable consumption as among the most important issues of our time, and they're both highly relevant to employee engagement. And, thinking through the lens of trust in the moment, at Davos, they were talking about this really profound trust gap, and the summary was that, there's an increased perception that business is bad and exploits us rather than contributes to society's development. And increasingly, society's lack of trust is demonstrating this opportunity for business to embed the principles of sustainability and responsibility into our core business strategy and not simply as business plus CSR. And I think that speaks for a really a big moment of opportunity for employee engagement, because brands have the chance to close the trust gap between external promises and internal practices, and the leading brands are starting from the inside out and looking inside for part of the solution. The other big theme around sustainable consumption, and all of us, particularly who represent consumer packaged goods or products that are packaged and sold, on one hand require the consumption of goods in order to drive our businesses and our economy, but at the same time we're participating in an unsustainable rate of consumption. And so you have the leaders at Davos talking about this imperative for companies to act to reduce the environmental consequences of consumption in the products that we purchase or that we create and sell. And what we know is that employee engagement can drive efficiencies, they can save resources, and programs can increase our license to operate in societies and communities by recognizing this tension around consumption and sustainability and beginning to build policies, practices, and innovation into how we work every day. And the third sort of big contextual pillar is winning the future, and really the race to millennials, whether they are consumers or our employees. And it is no surprise that when you look at the millennial mindset and the generation overall, they're deeply aligned with companies who embed and wear their values on their sleeves. So 88% of millennials would choose employers whose social responsibility values reflect their own. BBMG's own research shows that 55% of both millennial men and women believe it is either very or extremely important to work for a company that is socially and environmentally responsible. And similarly, talking about the brain drain and losing talent, 86% of millennials would consider leaving an employer whose social responsibility values no longer reflect their own. So, from a trust perspective, a sustainability and sustainable consumption perspective, and winning the talent race for the future, employee engagement is increasingly an important tool. And Gallup has found, based on 30 years of in-depth behavioral economic research with more than 17 million employees and 152 organizations across the globe, that there is a demonstrable business case for employee engagement. And they said recently the best performing companies know that an employee engagement strategy that is linked to corporate goals will help them win in the marketplace. Engaged employees, based on research, are more productive, more profitable, more consumer-focused, safer, and more likely to withstand the temptation to leave their jobs. And looking at the most engaged organizations with an 8-to-1 employee that is engaged versus the least, about a 2-to-1 employee engagement ratio, the most engaged organizations have demonstrated almost 4 times the earnings per share growth rate compared to organizations from the same industry. So there is not only the driver from the marketplace context, but an increasingly strong business case that paying attention and investing in employee engagement is a driver of innovation, of performance, and of creating value for our employees, our customers, and our shareholders. I'd like to share the final bit of framing before we dive into what we've learned through MSP and some other best practices, is a very helpful sort of paradigm shift that you guys can all find through the National Environmental Education Foundation and the Green Biz Employee Engagement Report that came out last year. But there's a shift across multiple dimensions from Engagement 1.0 to 2.0, and I think it's really helpful to keep in mind the ideal state of where we're going. From a goal perspective, Engagement 1.0 was often unclear and self-selected based on early adopter and motivated employees who take it on themselves to just create something out of nothing. And amen for that. That's been hugely important. But moving forward, the goals for employee engagement will be directly connected to sustainability strategy metrics and business drivers. The focus of Engagement 1.0 was really around the simple green practices, office recycling, or having community events, which are very important. Increasingly moving forward, it's both and, where the focus is innovation. So looking at our operations, looking at product development or packaging design, and looking at innovating our services so that they have less environmental impact and more social impact. The motivation, largely driven by the brave few, the personally passionate who've made it their own and started to pioneer engagement within their companies, to really seeing under Engagement 2.0 that it's really embedded in organizational incentives and aligned with all employees' career goals and their career growth paths. From the organization, it has been either self-organized and ad hoc or top-down without a lot of, a bottom and up ownership. And moving forward, it is both institutional and grassroots driven, where initiatives come from the top down and the bottom up and meet in the middle. And then finally, the measurement of Engagement 1.0 was ad hoc, driven by anecdotes and stories, which really matter, but increasingly looking at tracking the impact of accomplishments against business value and environmental impact. So you can really see here how engagement 1.0 to 2.0 can set the stage for success. Moving forward, I'd like to share, the answer to the question. So how might we leverage employee engagement to save costs, increase our performance, and drive innovation and value? And the next sort of chapter here is sharing lessons that BBMG learned working with Walmart on my sustainability plan and building on a very successful pilot program in North America. Our task was to take the sustainability strategy for employee engagement global, working with sustainability teams in 15 different countries and creating a platform that could allow Walmart to really roll this out globally and help to scale it. And so there are a couple of things that we learned and steps that we took that I'd like to share, and then I'm going to talk about how this plays out in some common best practices. And the first thing we learned, and these go in sort of order of the steps that we took that we'd recommend as you're looking at either starting or building on your own employee engagement efforts, is to know where you are today. And so our first impulse with the team at Walmart was to really listen deeply. So we did a lot of interviews with employees at all levels, from the leadership team to the sustainability team and people who are extremely sophisticated around logistics and supply chain management. But perhaps more importantly, we just walked the aisles of Walmart and talked to associates every day. And, this is Will. He's a shelf stocker. And he said, look, to me, I'm not exactly sure what sustainability is, but what it makes me think about is eating more spinach. And it's really important just to honestly understand the perspectives of employees. And for him, it was starting to take simple steps to eat healthier every day. We also heard from people who didn't connect what they did every day. For example, in the produce aisle, they were actually sending some of the produce that was overly ripe to either compost or to homeless shelters, and they weren't even connecting that their job was part of making a difference in that way. So understand where you are and that people come to it from different perspectives, different levels of knowledge and understanding. But then it's really important to map the journey. And so what happens here is it really begins with awareness and starting to help our employees understand that the simple actions that they take at work and at home can make an impact, and whether it's water or recycling or how they get to work or carpool, how they're spending their time in terms of volunteerism, all of those things, which they may already be doing or are starting to be aware of, begin the journey with awareness. Then we want to inspire them and incent them to learn more, to learn about, our environmental impact, our employee volunteerism opportunities, and then invite them from their perspective to choose their own passion rather than enforce something on them. It's really important to meet them where they are, both from a knowledge level but also an interest level. Once they pick that passion, which may be, cleaning up a park or riding their bike to work, help them make it a habit. 21 days typically makes it a habit by taking a single action. And then recognize them, celebrate them, and use them as early adopters who can spread the word. And when we were working with the team at Walmart, we were very mindful that there were different types of personas that we would be needing to engage to be successful. There were certainly the MSP champions, and we looked at their motivation, the vision for why they'd get involved, the trigger point that would get them to act, and who are the influencers that would help build a culture of action and engagement around them. So the champions were already there. They not only wanted to do good work at the company, they wanted to make the world a better place and believe that they can. But we also knew there was a persona we called the practicals, which were, they want a better life for themselves and their families. And if there's a way to take a simple step at work or as part of a volunteer effort or as part of an employee engagement program that can improve their experience and lifestyle and their family and also make a difference, well, that's great too. And the practicals were important. But we were also mindful of the challengers who were skeptical that this is, is it worth their time? They're trying to make a living. They're trying to move up in their corporate environment and be successful. And so we know that they want to be healthier and they want their family to be successful. So even with the skeptics, starting with steps that they could take that could improve their own experience and their own life from their point of view. The next step was to craft the strategy. And so for my sustainability plan, it was really making sure that we simplified into a very coherent message that everybody could understand, and then built the platform to deliver on the big idea. So my sustainability plan is sort of the overarching concept and anthem. The promise was to each employee that MSP simply helps you live healthier, greener, and better, and together make a world of difference. And what we offer in MSP was the inspiration to believe that you can do it, the education to empower your next step, and the support to achieve your goals over time, with reasons to believe in what it means to employees. We also found it very important, and this again is globally across 15 different countries, to theme the actions in ways that were really simple. And things like biodiversity and supply chain waste impacts are not necessarily employee friendly, and so we kept it really simple. The top line was live healthier, the second line live greener, and the third live better. And what you can see are global icons which were developed with inputs from 15 different cultures: to eat healthy, to get active, to reduce stress, or quit tobacco, theming enjoying nature, saving energy and water, and reducing our waste. And in terms of living better, learning new skills, making quality time for our families and our loved ones, managing our resources and our money, and helping others with volunteer and charity efforts. So simplifying, making it understandable, and theming it so that it's easier to apply to your own goals. And then telling the stories. And these are just examples of the poster collateral we did, both in English, in Chinese, and in Spanish and Portuguese. And here you can see this is Heather, and I'm living better. What's your MSP? And she's making quality time. She's getting outdoors, and she's doing some yoga to reduce stress. And this was all about building storytelling with real employees within the system of live healthier, live greener, live better. And then tracking the progress of your employees. So here, Walmart created a proprietary internal platform on mywalmart.com so that employees could literally make commitments against living healthier, greener, and better, and track them over time, and literally have points that drive recognition and rewards. You can track what your team is doing, your store, your city, and even your marketplace. And this widget's portable to desktops and also to mobile units. So it made it a lot easier and a lot friendlier to get the curriculum for how to do this, but also to make a commitment and track it. And increasingly, there are many tools available, and certainly on volunteerism, VolunteerMatch can be your go-to resource to make it super easy to find opportunities to get involved and to track them. And then finally, celebrating success. And my sustainability plan has launched strong based on the pilot already in North America and in Brazil. It's now rolling out this year to 15 different countries, and I'm very proud to say that all of this is being open sourced through Walmart's commitment to the Clinton Global Initiative. And at the end, I'll share some resources where you not only can learn from this case, but you can actually use the curriculum and the tools. But every day at Walmart, it's embedded into team updates and store and manager updates, how the market tracks their success, and then at the company level, sharing our stories and our success at milestone meetings, both at the shareholders meeting every year, but also at the Global Sustainability Milestone meeting. So important to keep that in mind. And these are just simple 7 steps that we've learned working with Walmart that we hope is helpful as you're enhancing your effort as well as or building your effort. So the last part of what I'd like to share are 5 sort of takeaways and best practices for what we've learned, some tips and some examples well and above Walmart that we hope can spark some ideas and initial practices that you can embody in your own efforts. And then I'll be delighted to answer your questions. And the first takeaway is really to make it strategic. And what we really believe is that when you connect your employees to your organization's business strategy and sustainability mission, you're going to inspire and motivate them to go way above and beyond and be part of something bigger. You'll open the door to greater creativity and collaboration by involving your staff and your employees in openly shared goals that really matter about how we measure our performance and our impact. And I think you'll be surprised and delighted by the variety of ideas that can come from far-flung and unexpected places when you make it a priority and you invite everybody's creativity and participation. So at a moment that we've already shared where the earth is warming, the economy is dipping and generations are shifting, we believe that employees increasingly want to be involved and empowered as part of the solution. And so whether it's recycling or renewable energy to education or volunteering, employees across industries and countries are asking what they can do. So the first sort of tips for making it strategic is to share a vision. And it's really important from a business perspective from the top to articulate that it's important and it's part of how we see and measure our business. And with that in mind, to co-create a vision statement with your employees to define your vision and your goals along with the resources that will be available to get there. Then to align the team. So unite your sustainability team, your HR team, obviously the C-suite, and increasingly looking at product development and innovation, marketing for sure, to embed your employee engagement strategy and sustainability strategy in your recruitment, your training, your leadership development protocols, your compensation packages, your events, and your employee perks and rewards. And then finally, define success. So identify key performance metrics at the onset. Create a baseline to track progress, whether that's job satisfaction through employee surveys, employees engaged, tracking their volunteer hours or sustainability actions. And then looking at water and energy that you're saving, we'll show some examples of that, or even your greenhouse gases that you've reduced. So share a vision, align the team, and define success. And I think a really good example of this, our friend Wood Turner at Stonyfield and his work with the Mission Action Program. So since 2006, Stonyfield created the Mission Action Program to unite and empower high-level teams in each of its key areas of environmental burden, which they just defined as emissions from their facilities, transportation, zero waste, and sustainable packaging. Part of the process for MAP was that each team completes an annual action plan that sets both long-term and short-term goals, and that has to be approved annually by the CEO, COO, and VP of Natural Resources. And team members actually have a portion of their annual compensation linked to achieving their annual MAP objectives. And so far, through MAP, Stonyfield has reduced its greenhouse gases in transportation by 46%. They prevented 18 tractor-trailer loads of plastic per year being produced. They've reduced their greenhouse gases from facilities by $2 million in savings and reduced solid waste by 39%. And so they've made it clear, they've made it a priority, and they've made it measurable and rewarded. So they've really tried to embed it in their business strategy. And the second example, another company that we love, is Interface Floor. And they have a program called Mission Zero, which is their call to get to zero waste and zero carbon emissions by 2020, and really mapping and understanding the environmental impact of everything they do make, take, and waste. And so far, they've reduced their raw materials and recycling by 32 million kilograms or kilos, about 600 African elephants worth, 77% reduction in waste that was sent to landfills, and a decrease of their total energy use by 43%. But the most important thing here isn't just that they've created a stake in the ground as business strategy and measure it. It's about how it inspires a culture of sustainability, stewardship, and innovation. So they've created both ecometrics, which measure the zero waste impacts, but also social metrics to collect data on their social capital and their investment in their employees. And they take the time to measure every hour that they donate to volunteer activities and to build their communities. And they started a project called Together We Can Reuse It, because they're a carpet company. They have enormous amounts of scraps. And in Thailand, employees used that waste stream of yarn and started to knit the dolls that you see on the screen. And then they worked with a nonprofit to sell those dolls locally, where all the proceeds helped community organizations. And then it was so successful, they started bringing community members into their facilities to teach them about upcycling and the craft of making these dolls, and now they've spun it out as a local for-profit, nonprofit venture. And so it just shows that not only do you put a stake in the ground and measure, but you use it as a source of innovation and also community engagement. So the first big takeaway is to make it strategic. The second is to make it personal, and certainly issues like climate change and biodiversity are complex, and they can seem really impossible to understand to many, even us. But framing these big issues in relatable terms is not impossible, and it's essential to making it relevant and personal to succeed in terms of your employee strategy and making it part of their routine. And so some of the tips that we've identified is, first, make it relevant. So translate environmental issues into relatable real-life experiences. Some of the live healthier, greener, better examples we shared, but showing it in terms of what we do impacts the water we drink, the air we breathe, the source of the food that we eat every day, like really trying to show why it's relevant to us and how our actions are important. It's also important to make it actionable. You know, these issues are daunting, to say the least, and so asking employees to start small, commit to one concrete goal, activity, or action to get started and have small wins that can build momentum. And then show, don't tell. A lot of this is theoretical. It's complex, and it's hard to see it. And so help employees understand and track their own energy use, their recycling habits, and their carbon footprints by showing them what it looks like and how it works. And a great example here about making it personal is platforms and tools that can help us understand our actions and our impact. And the proprietary We portal that Nike created invites employees to give time, give voice, give money, and give their talents to make a better world. And employees can use the platform to give donations, to find opportunities for advocacy on topics that they're passionate about, and to submit ideas and opportunities overall. Similarly, VolunteerMatch, working with Target's community relations team, has created a Target-branded volunteer site for their 11 volunteer councils to take action both through the company-wide volunteer initiatives for everybody, but also post and track local opportunities in their own backyards. And we've, through VolunteerMatch, they've trained volunteer champions across all of the departments who have access to administer the site and help lead, organize, and share volunteer activities. And then finally, I really recommend Conservation International's user-friendly tools. And this is the carbon calculator, but they really have fun and educational ways, interactive ways to measure your personal and your household footprint and see what you can do at work, at home, across travel and daily habits to understand and track your impacts. Similarly, you know, looking at Hyatt and empowering action on the individual level, and then looking at how your company makes an impact for good or bad and how you can mitigate it and gets involved in the community. I really love how Hyatt has made employee engagement relevant and personal by connecting engagement to their employees' skills, passions, and their local community's priority needs. So an example here on the left is that in Seattle, Hyatt at Olive 8 and the Grand Hyatt in Seattle partnered with Fair Start. It empowers homeless people and disadvantaged men, women, and families to help get life skills, job training, and employment in the food service industry, which makes sense. So through the Fair Start culinary program, it's a 16-week training course with hands-on food service training where the Hyatt employees do the training, and then they follow it up with job placement services. And so property expert chefs and other cooks from all of their properties there volunteer to raise money to teach, and then they actually have recruited many of the graduates to work in Hyatt hotels. And so it's a really smart way to leverage the expertise of your employees directly with a local population and a direct one-to-one benefit for people in need. In the middle, Hyatt has in Santiago, Chile, the city has no recycling program. So Hyatt took it on their own to start collecting recyclables and donating the material to local charities. And as a consequence of this, they've not only diverted 110 metric tons, but they've actually worked with the city to pioneer a new citywide recycling program. And then finally on the right, the team in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina donated $300,000 to the Make It Right Foundation to build homes in the lower Ninth Ward, and then volunteers helped to revitalize playgrounds and gardens in the same neighborhood. So this is just a really smart way that you're using the skills and the passions and the local relationships to drive employee engagement. Number 3 is to make it flexible, and certainly while top-down leadership is important, the best employee engagement programs are co-created and co-owned by employees themselves. And we recommend creating something we call freedom within a framework that allows different parts of the organization to be aligned on the global mission and vision and brand and concept, but to customize it according to their unique needs. So making it flexible allows for different units and different regions to adapt the messages and materials that can account for local culture and local knowledge levels. So number one, in terms of our tips, offer freedom within a framework. So MSP is a great example. We know it's my sustainability plan, living healthier, greener, and better, but within that, each market and employee can make it their own by choosing how they want to bring that to life. So allow different parts of your organization to customize it according to their needs. Invite co-creativity. And a study by Brighter Planet found that companies that allow employees to share ideas and actually shape what their employee engagement strategy looks like are more than 6 times as likely to have an effective program. And then respect your culture. You want to match your engagement strategy with your overall corporate culture so there's an authentic alignment and purpose across your organization. And this is a really good chart to see like what is your organizational style and to create your platform within the right culture. So how do you activate your employee engagement program based on your culture? If you have a collaborative culture, it usually means you have a very open collaborative team structure. You use lots of brainstorming and collaborative sessions to create ideas. You can use that to enhance, define, or build your employee engagement strategy. If your company is really driven by sort of a in-depth analysis, really controlling decision-making based on data and metrics, well, then you can do an analysis of your employees' needs, the areas of the most impact where you can have both risk and opportunity, and take a business planning approach, a SWOT analysis, and a metrics-based plan to identify opportunities. If you're a creative or co-creative culture, and you're often pioneering new pathways, you reward and incent ideas that are out of the box, well then generate ideas through employee workshops or contests or crowdsourcing. And then finally, if you have a competitive culture where we're all driven by performance and we often try to compete and win, whether it's against a marketplace competitor or teams within the company, well then set goals, find benchmarks against your peers, and incentivize challenges to reach those goals. So it's really important to align your strategy with your corporate style. And making flexible, the flexibility also extends to sort of campaigning it and freedom within a framework. And if you're Coca-Cola, you have 700,000 employees across your system globally. And they've created, like MSP, they have Live Positively, which frames commitments around energy, packaging, water, and their community involvement. And if you look specifically around one of the verticals like water stewardship, working with the World Wildlife Fund, co-created very detailed water efficiency toolkits. So the bottlers, which are by far where the impact happens, have a centralized series of best practices in their facilities so that they can learn around watersheds and trace their impact on their local environment, manage the watershed in partnership with other organizations and help to protect them with other groups that impact the same area. And so building expertise where your supply chain or your team has the most impact, and then taking big ideas like water stewardship and driving employee engagement in clean water and sanitation, environmental awareness and programs with employees and community members. So the third big one is to make it flexible. The third is to make it rewarding. And I think the most important thing here is to remember this is often complex, challenging, and it's nothing that you do overnight. So stay positive. Keep activities fun and rewarding. Remind people what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're making progress. Certainly acknowledge what the lessons are that you're learning, but keep it moving forward. Share your stories. Really matters in terms of recognizing employee efforts and achievements that'll go a long way to keeping them engaged. So whether it's in-person or digital opportunities for employees to share activities and experiences, whether it's morning huddles, weekly staff, milestone meetings or award ceremonies, and then finally, inspire a friendly competition. So create contests around concrete actions like energy use or recycling and offer branded awards for your most committed team members. And a great example of this is finding specific awards and rewards by Intel, which measures and recognizes performance around environmental impact. So since 2008, Intel has linked a portion of every employee's compensation from frontline staff to their CEO to the achievement of environmental sustainability metrics. And they are challenged to innovate ways to promote recycling and waste reduction and lower the overall impact of their products and processes. And so far, through their Intel Environmental Excellence Awards, the projects that they've honored have saved $136 million so far for their company. Similarly, in terms of sort of a friendly competition, our friends at L'Oreal are acting on the belief that what gets measured gets done. And so they were looking at their monthly utility bills, and they created a competition within floors in their headquarters in New York that's been really effective in changing behavior. The program's called I've Got the Power. It's a friendly staff competition with the overall goal of taking simple steps like powering down computers, turning off lights, et cetera, to reduce energy use by 20%. Every month, the employees upload what they've done on an internal Facebook page, and then looking at the electricity bills, the floors with the least energy use get cash prizes, and the winning floor for the last 5 months have reduced their consumption of electricity by an average of 37%. So kind of making it fun, making it simple, and giving a friendly competition. And they give cash prizes and things like, you know, food and parties for the floors that do the most good. And then finally, to sort of wrap these best practices, it's important to think long-term. Ultimately, creating shared value is a long-term game. And building an enduring company based on ideals and purpose is also a long-term commitment. And so while all of the tactics we're sharing are great ways to take initial steps, it's important to think through the lens of the long term. We believe at BBMG that employee engagement programs deserve to be treated as seriously and as creatively as you would an external marketing campaign, even though they often don't have the same marketing budget. So here's what we think in terms of tips. To make it last, first, campaign it. Think like an advertising executive or a political candidate, and treat employee engagement as an ongoing campaign. What is your big branded idea or anthem? Have a launch plan that puts a stake in the ground and offers an opportunity to get involved. Follow up with tentpole events, seasonal activities. Perhaps it's summer water conservation or winter energy efficiency. And then have activities wired in to your processes at the company to celebrate and to share to maintain momentum. We also recommend, while you're thinking big and campaigning it with a great idea and a follow-up strategy that keeps momentum going with activities, to embed it in the everyday. So we would encourage you to embed it in employee perks. That could be paid volunteer days, incentives for purchasing hybrid vehicles. Do lunch and learns to educate. Bring in outside experts or team members that kicked butt and did great work that they could share with others. And then build buzz. We created a cascading communications playbook for Walmart where team leaders and managers could literally share updates in morning meetings and have ways of sharing from executives to managers to frontline employees, the message and the opportunity. And then we kept it going with e-blasts and Post-its and swag that we put on, you know, the break room and refrigerators in the cafe. And then keep it going by closing the feedback loop. Map your progress, celebrate success, and continually share what you've learned and then define future goals and aspirations. And a great example is our client, Cliff Bar, which really embeds engagement every day. It's sustainability driven through engagement is such a part of Cliff Bar's culture. I mean, it's embedded in their employee benefits package. They get incentives for actions like purchasing a fuel-efficient car, biking to work, or making eco-friendly home improvements. The company actually helps them pay for that. They ensure momentum with weekly staff meetings where employees share tips for living greener. They have an annual awards ceremony where individuals are recognized for excellence. And it's all around building substance and action on their 5 aspirations for the company: sustaining their brand, sustaining their business, sustaining their people, sustaining the community, and sustaining the planet. And Cliff has a 2080 strategy, and this is about 10 years old now, but a 40-hour week for a year is 2,080 hours. And so they want their employees to volunteer 2,080 hours collectively every year for their favorite causes. And this past year, whether it's, you know, climbing Mount Shasta as part of the Breast Cancer Fund's fundraising efforts or a campaign we helped to create called Meet the Moment, which was a national day of action that brought together 1,200 people and contributed 4,500 volunteer hours to help clean up and preserve outdoor spaces with Leave No Trace and Surfrider Foundation, from employee perks to creating awards to creating days of action with our employees and our customers together. Cliff Bar's really done a lot to make it last. So in conclusion, there are 5 takeaways we'd like to share, and obviously this is just the tip of the iceberg, but make it strategic, make it personal and relevant, make it flexible with freedom within a framework, make it rewarding with incentives and stories and recognition, and make it last by thinking long-term and building a campaign around it. So I really appreciate the chance to share what we've been doing and what we've been learning, but it's just, again, the beginning. And I'd like to share, at bbmg.com/green the team, you can get our free starter guide, which kind of maps some of the steps that I've shared today. We have an infographic that literally helps you map your journey towards sustainability and employee engagement, whether you're building on success or getting started. And then thanks to our work with Walmart and their commitment to the Clinton Global Initiative, we actually can offer you for free the MSP toolkit and the curriculum around these different actions. And BBMG stands ready to help you customize that toolkit, make it your own, brand it to your own brand and corporate culture. But it's an incredible resource that can save time and literally thousands of dollars of efforts in mapping how you can help your employees get involved. So with that, I'll turn it back over to our fearless moderator, Casey, and I'd be thrilled to answer your questions.
Awesome, Raphael. Thank you so much. This was so much information for us to take away, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that I really admire about BBMG's approach to creating these programs. And one of the first things that Raphael talked about today was about starting with by surveying your audiences. So talk to your employees, find out what does sustainability mean to them, what does corporate social responsibility mean to them, kind of identifying what that means to your audiences first, rather than trying to build a campaign thinking that you know. And that, that's something that really rings true a lot with the work that VolunteerMatch does, and I know it is for BBMG as well. So I just wanted to point that out as a really kind of important point for all of us to take away as well.
If I could,
yeah.
I just wanted to share, I'd love to share a quick anecdote that speaks to what you're saying, Casey, that I have remembered forever, and I think it's just really fun. Our friends, a friend named Kristen Grimm tells a story about a campaign in San Francisco to stop the plan to build an airport in a certain neighborhood because the environmental group that she was working with was afraid of an endangered species of frog, that if they built the airport in this area, it was a very sensitive environmental watershed, the frog would perhaps go out of existence. And so the environmental group was like, we've got to save the frog. They did research in the community and found that actually the reason that the community members cared about why they don't want this airport was traffic. And so Kristen and her team said, we're going to win. We've got to campaign traffic. And the environmental organization said, no, we want it to be about the frog. And so it's so important, while we may want to save the frog at the end of the day, we've got to start with where our audience is, what's relevant and important to them, and meets their needs. And so remember, sometimes to stop building the airport and to save the frog, it's about traffic and not about the frog.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. We do have a few questions, and I also wanted to remind everyone on the line that we will be distributing links to the slides, the recording, and then also those resources that Raphael mentioned on his last slide. A link to all that will go out tomorrow to the audience. So Raphael, I'm going to jump right in because we have just a few minutes. One of our first questions was about what does an engaged employee look like? What are some of the behaviors and things that we should know so that when we see them, we know that we've achieved some measure of success by engaging our employees?
That's an awesome question. I think before we get into mapping that, I think it's really smart, as we mentioned up top, knowing where you're starting, to listen first and to map sort of where are we today. And again, if we think about some of the dimensions that we wanted to explore, how satisfied are you with your job today? Are you happy at work? Do you feel like what you do makes a difference both for our company and in the larger community and society? So getting at job satisfaction. Ask, what is it about your job that is most exciting, most inspiring, most creative, as well as most frustrating, most disempowering, and most disappointing. That's painful often to be courageous enough to ask these questions, but to build a baseline around their attitudes, their behaviors, and their expectations. Then specifically, ask them what matters most to you, thinking about our company and the difference that we can make. And through sustainability, as we mentioned with Walmart, it can be through the driver of health, it can be through the driver of environment, it can be through and sustainability and savings and resource efficiencies, it can be through the driver of my own personal growth and development and our commitment to charity and the community. And so kind of get a sense at, with all of these different dimensions, which of these are most important to you. And then the biggest opportunity is to invite them to share, great, we love that you're interested. Tell us your idea about what you could do in your day-to-day or week-to-week to take simple actions to act on that impulse. The question is, what is an engaged employee? And I think knowing that baseline that you can refer to every 6 months or year and a half is really important to know whether you're getting traction or not. At the most simple way, an engaged employee shows up every day not only because they believe they can do a great job in their role, but because they believe that they're part of something bigger that's ultimately more important than any one of them and part of a mission that matters. Number two, it's that they have efficacy, that the actions that they take can make a difference, and that they see themselves as agents of success, and that what they're doing is part of something bigger tactically. Third, we want to give them pathways where they believe that there's a simple first step that they can take, and that they've demonstrated they've made that first effort. They've learned about something, they've taken an action. And then the most, I guess, successful would be, have they been able to have a small win and share it with others, where they're starting to become evangelists and ambassadors for the work that you do. So my long-winded answer, start by getting a baseline and listening first. Know where you are across multiple dimensions of satisfaction, of relevance, and where our engagement pathways will be, and of initial actions that the employee recommends. And then overall, track, do they feel a part of something bigger? Are they taking an action? Are they getting momentum? Are they sharing the work? And I think that as a start is a great place to say those are metrics for success.
So again, it goes back to the points that you made earlier, which is about measuring along the way, adjusting based on what you learned from that, and also capturing those stories, which is another point I really like that you just mentioned, which is, how does this make the employees feel? Do they feel that it's been a success? Do they feel like empowered by the program? Those are all really fantastic points. We have another question, Raphael, that I think can be very broadly applicable to all of us. The example that you gave about the work you did with Walmart is wonderful. However, not all of us are Walmart, and not all of us are global. So we're part of an organization that might not have full buy-in yet for our CSR program or sustainability program, and meaning that we might not yet have enough budget to build, a full-fledged embedded program. What would your advice be to those people who are a little bit more limited about where they should start so that they can start building the case for why this is important, and hopefully over time build it into something bigger? So where's that starting point?
Another super question. I think part of the reason we wanted to share the work with Cliff Bar is that is a relatively mid-sized company that's really tried to embed it in successful ways. So there are two dimensions that I would say if you're just getting started, you're in a resource-constrained environment, perhaps with a smaller scale company. Number one, and these are concurrent, these aren't either or. Number one, you want to start mapping the business case for where actions that you can take through employee engagement will start to serve the overall business success. So where will it save money? Where will it reduce health costs and sick days? Where might it get an opportunity to attract more talent? And where might it build our reputation as a citizen in the community? So start to literally map out, well, where are ways we can go to the C-suite and start making the connection in the business case that if we do this, we're going to be a more successful company for our investors, shareholders, and our team. The second is find your passionate core. and start the green team with the people who will show up for this because it's in their gut and in their heart and they really care about it. And frankly, it gives them a deeper sense of commitment to the company, a deeper sense of satisfaction. And again, starting with that core team, I would do that survey to see where your team members are if you're given permission to do so. But if not, I would, in light of where there might be some impacts, to save health costs, to drive efficiencies on energy, to create better services or products, to be a citizen in the local community, get that core team to be your pilot. And I would not try to overreach or try to build it in one day, but I'd get that core team and I'd try to build them from different departments so you have different perspectives and constraints wired in, and do a simple, first step. Listen with the survey. Do a benchmark of other companies at your size and their steps. Call the HR or sustainability leader there and ask what they did. And then start to figure out your pilot program. A lunch and learn to introduce it. A singular event in the community or volunteer day. Some incentives that can be fun and friendly, whether it's an award or a gift card that allows you to incentivize and reward people who are taking those first actions. And then basically with that pilot behind you and the survey that says the opportunity for enhancement, I would take that track record to the C-suite and say, we're demonstrating that the passion is there, the impacts can be proven, this is what we've done on our own, and this is specifically what our competitors or peers are doing, where we want to go, and here's the case we want to make to grow. And I think that kind of builds it from the inside out. It starts where you have authentic passion and interest and alignment, and you prove as you go. What you don't need to feel like is you have to do my sustainability plan and have a widget and a platform and a 25-page curriculum or whatever. I don't think that has to be a first step. It can really grow organically from the inside out, but I am suggesting that you do that from the first moment with alignment with strategy in mind and making the case for your business and your impact in mind, so that you end up after your pilot with a lot of data to either learn at the least or to make a business case that gets some significant buy-in, commitment, and resources at the most.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're just about out of time, so if we haven't gotten to your questions today, we'll do our best to follow up with you after the call. And Raphael, if you could just go to the last couple of slides. Thanks for everyone for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this session, and if you are interested in some of the other sessions, we archive all of our Best Practice Network webinars on our YouTube page, so you can find it at youtube.com/volunteermatch. Also, we have a couple other resources to kind of stay informed and engaged about what's happening in the world of CSR, employee engagement, and volunteerism, corporate volunteerism. Our blog, Volunteering in CSR, is a great resource for news and information. And also following us on Twitter, we're always kind of trying to keep up to date with what's happening in the space. And that, again, that is at VM_solutions. So I hope you connect with us on those platforms. Thanks for everyone for listening in today. This has been a really fantastic session, and we've, Raphael, you've provided a ton of information for us to, inspire us to think about, how we can apply some of these best practices to our own organizations. And I really thank you for joining us today and helping us kind of see the light about how we can kind of build more engaged workplaces. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Casey. It's a pleasure, and thank you to VolunteerMatch for creating such great opportunities to share it.
And thanks, everyone, for listening in today. We hope you'll join us next time as well. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.